that 1/3 of all income taxes are consumed by waste and inefficiency in the federal government, and another 1/3 escapes collection owing to the underground economy. With 2/3 of everyone's personal income taxes wasted or not collected, 100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt and by federal government contributions to transfer payments. In other words, all individual income tax revenues are gone before one nickel is spent to the services that taxpayers expect from their government. And that ends that quote or information. Continuing on, the government has created a fiction entity or person in which the government can interact. A factitious legal entity being a fiction is considered by operational law a decedent, infant, or a death in absentia, or civilly dead. The government cannot interact with a real man or woman, as what man can have authority over another when all men are created equal? The state accepts or takes the given first and maybe middle name of the baby plus the family last name of the parents and puts these two things, or commonly referred to as names, together and creates a fiction commonly referred to as an infant person or straw man. The fiction or straw man is a debtor and acts as a surety on behalf of the U.S. public debt. Straw man, as defined in Black's 6th edition, a front, a third party who is put up in name only to take part in a transaction. Nominal party to a transaction, one who acts as an agent for another for the purpose of taking title to real property and executing whatever documents and instruments the principal may direct respecting the property. Persons who purchase property for another to conceal identity of real purchaser or to accomplish some purpose otherwise not allowed. Wow. An interesting thought arises, but by what authority did any man have to create a corporation that they decided to call a government and declare that every future man not yet born to be automatically bound to their corporate government without first waiting until that man became of age, and where he freely came down to their corporate office and personally signed on to their corporate constitution in order to become a party to it? This idea is supported in a letter to James Madison from Thomas Jefferson dated September 6, 1789. The earth belongs to the living. And I go on to quote this. The question whether one generation of men has a right to bind another seems never to have been started either on this or our side of the water, yet it is a question of such consequence as not only to merit decision, but place also among the fundamental principles of every government. The course of reflection in which we are immersed here on the elementary principles of society has presented this question to my mind, and that no such obligation can be transmitted, I think very capable of proof. I set out on this ground, which I suppose to be self-evident, that the earth belongs in usufruct to the living, that the dead have neither powers nor rights over it. And that's so very important, and that's the end of the quote. The earth belongs in usufruct to the living. That means that while we are here, we are to be good stewards of the earth and take care of it. It's not that we own it, we're just merely using it or have possession or control over whatever. So you live in a house, you have the possession of that. But when you die, what do? You don't take the house with you. It's the same thing with the bank account, the car, the pension, whatever. It stays here on planet Earth. The dead that the dead have neither powers nor rights over it. So, continuing on, when the unaware man, by and through operation of law, is asked, "What is your name?" he answers for example, John Doe, and thus claims as presumptive legal title holder a fictitious legal title, entity, organization, property, infant name that is legally owned through title by the state, and as such unknowingly has consented voluntarily to some foreign jurisdiction and is now subject to those rules of that jurisdiction in some unrealized or unknown surety position as fiduciary, administrator, executor, or trustee on behalf of that person. Since the 1930s, the state has seized all titles, certificates of live birth, for example, of the people and returned a certified certificate, commonly referred to as a birth certificate, with the state seal, signed by an authorized agent fiduciary of the state, and this became a receipt to that man, or baby at the time, for indemnification. If used properly, this certified certificate appears to be usufruct compliant, and when used properly by the man, it must provide him, really the name is indemnified, as this is the only thing man can use in commerce, and everything transacted by man in the property name is commerce. You understand when you use the name, that's considered commerce, correct? Yeah, that's what it is, all right. As this is the only thing man can use in commerce, and everything transacted by man in the property name is commerce, with full and complete indemnification for any and all claims, taxes, fees, etc. against the title, name, property he uses for commercial purposes, and everything is in commerce since the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case. Under the rules of usufruct, the owner that reaps the benefits, meaning the state, also must accept liabilities. There is case law that backs this up. See United States versus Pee Wee Coal Company, Inc. It's a 1951 case, so it's after 1938 Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case. In part, and I quote, like any private person or corporation, the United States normally is entitled to the profits from and must bear the losses of business operations which it conducts. When a private business is possessed and operated for public use, no reason appears to justify imposition of losses sustained on the person from whom the property was seized. Meaning my natural rights were seized. Again, it was by necessity, which means law has nothing to do with it. It was to fund government operations. Furthermore, quoting some more from the case, that the government chose to intervene by taking possession and operating control. By doing so, it became the proprietor, and in the absence of a contrary arrangement, which we're going to discuss contrary arrangements in a bit, was entitled to the benefits and subject to the liabilities which that status involves. So, to sum this up in a minute, the state took operating control of your natural rights. No problem. Don't get angry. It's not the end of the world. They too need to accept the liability. So for instance, if there is a mortgage on your home, it's a debt under the name, you have no way of paying it, they should simply discharge it because there's no way to pay for anything. There's no gold or silver in the system, and they can easily do that. But what happens, you interfere. And when you interfere with their private business, which appears to be public business, but it's really private business, you accept the liability. So I certainly have tried numerous times in various entities, from the Pope down to the local Broward County government head probate judge, the state of Florida, the state of New York, all these, the Washington, the president, the Treasury, all the questions, and so many letters I sent out asking questions or notices. It's gone nowhere. They don't respond. So I don't know how to force them to respond. I've lost count how many times I've sent out questions or notices, just nothing. Continuing on with this. Thus man was left the naked owner of, and in parentheses, future labor pledged seas converted by necessity to fund bankruptcy government operations, end parentheses, his, as exclusive use of his body or property given freely to him by his creator to use in incarnation with full disposal rights to all the fruit, and by operation of law became a source or creditor, if you will, for the U.S. bankruptcy. See, technically, because they've pledged our future labor, because how do they pledge fiction? We actually do something. So they've pledged our future labor to pay down this debt. But the debt just keeps increasing because the population uses Federal Reserve notes. Continuing on. And at the same time, man too also became unaware surety and an enemy of the state, debtor at the same time for increasing Federal Reserve notes or private script, thus increasing national deficit, overall debt, and unknowingly creates a harm to the public. By man claiming that title or name, John Doe, or state property, he loses source or force status and consents to surety status by operation of law. Any and all transactions made under that title or name or transmitting utility, i.e. John Doe, automatically vests as state property, where the state receives all the benefits of man's energy source, thus leaving him naked. Not naked as in physical, naked as in legal, meaning he has no basic rights except what the state bestows upon him. Man has the natural right given to him by his creator of the fruits on planet Earth without destroying the thing, but does not and cannot have legal ownership, as the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. This is so much. Currently, by necessity, man cannot conduct any commerce, including court, without using the state property, title, or name. A man called John cannot be recognized in commerce or government. Only John Doe can be recognized. The terms person, ens legis, individual, infant, name, title, corporation, whoever, straw man, non-incorporated, etc. are codified / incorporated into law, and this is how the state can recognize its property. Man is not, nor can be, the property of the state. The man can either use or claim that name, title. It is by his claim that he consents unaware and thereby agrees to act as surety, now under the jurisdiction of the state. Furthermore, man is termed as an animal under law. 7 U.S.C. 136 parentheses D as in David, animal. The term animal means all vertebrate and invertebrate species, including but not limited to man and other mammals, birds, fish, and shellfish. Under 7 U.S.C. 136 parentheses S, person, the term person means any individual, partnership, association, corporation, or any organized group of persons, whether incorporated or not. As we can see from the statute, a man and a person appear to be two separate and distinct classes. It appears throughout public policy, statutes, regulations, laws, ordinances, etc., deal with persons and not man or other mammals. If this is the case, then only persons are obligated to perform under the rules, laws, regulations, and are subject to some sort of jurisdiction with given rights and obligations to the state, while man is not under that jurisdiction and thus without obligation to said jural society. Second. In summing up this section, summary of understanding with select talking points in history. Number 1, it appears that the original Republic Constitution for the United States of America has been suspended or pushed to the side due to the United States being in bankruptcy. A new foreign quasi-corporate trust, United States Inc., took over, similar in name and having the appearance of a constitutional republic, operates similarly to the former republic, but in reality is quite different. Number 2, because the foreign government seized all the titles and property by necessity for its army and administrative operations, a trust and/or estate, property held in abeyance, was created, and the government issued receipts for indemnification, or what we today commonly refer to as birth certificate. Birth certificate. The birth certificate has the straw man's title name on it. The name is a something, 2 separate words, the hospital created as a title similar to a manufacturer's certificate of origin for cars, then transferred title to the county, city, or registrar, who then registered the title with the county, city, similar to the auto dealer, then transferred again up to the state, who then registered the title with its registrar. The state registrar retains original title held in trust. The value in the title was then transferred, conveyed, and assigned all interest in that title made to and for the account of the United States, where the United States purchased said interest in that title via its federal funding paid to the state through the Federal Social Security Act. The state registrar has the authority to issue a certified copy of said birth title or document to the authorized and exclusive user of said person. It is clear that the state does not register people, otherwise it would appear to register involuntary servitude. It registers the birth event, and that's very important. The state does not register people, it registers the birth event. Number 3, various documents from the Libre Code, Law of Nations, Hague Convention, 14th Amendment appear to give us some clue as to how the system under military occupation, emergency war powers operates. The system is perfect if man uses the system as originally intended and conducts himself as a peaceful inhabitant. The 14th Amendment, Section 4, suggests that the act of belligerency is not a claim or debt honored by the U.S. or the United States. It may stand to reason that the opposite of belligerent acts or peaceful inhabitancy would be honored if certain facts were acknowledged or accepted by said foreigner that there is a military occupancy. When the system is not used properly by the real men or women, there appears to be a presumption on the part of the government based upon some unknown to the average man operations of law where man unknowingly consents to an act in some surety capacity as administrator, trustee, or executor, also known as debtor to the foreign occupancy, occupant, or government. It is through making a claim to the property of the state that is deemed a belligerent act, and therefore man, by that claim, by operation of law, provides his voluntary consent. Men are the real source of credit for the foreign occupation. However, by claiming or by mere suggestion and ownership of that name, title, or estate, man loses the status of source and acquiesces or consents by operation of law to voluntary servitude as